Hello and welcome to another episode of Careers and Coffee. Today we've got a slightly deviation from the normal route of the show. Today I am delighted to actually welcome David Bullock, who's the Client Services Director of Tiger Eye Consulting, along with his software developer, Aaron Griffin. We also were hoping to have some students from Sir Isaac Newton College with us today, who were going to be asking the questions, but due to a slight technical difficulty, these things always let us down. Good old virtual world. We've got David, who's actually really kindly taken the questions, and he's actually going to be directing the students' questions live to his own software developer, Aaron. So without further ado, I would like to welcome David and Aaron.
Hello.
Hello. And obviously, David has a slightly dual role, because apart from your paid employment as a client services director at Tiger Eye, you also have a pretty special role with Sir Isaac Newton, insofar as that you are what we call their enterprise advisor, and that's how you've come to ask the questions today.
Yes.
So for anybody who doesn't know, just to say, an enterprise advisor is somebody from business, employment, any role whatsoever, but somebody who is currently in work, who actually links up with a particular school or college to actually help that school or college with enterprise days, employer activities, and just to help expose the students to understand what the world of work is like, really, isn't it?
Very much so. Yeah, very much so. And today's session has been born out of that. Some work we've done with Isaac Newton School the end of last year, and we felt this was a kind of next step process from what came out of that meeting. So all good stuff.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay, well, to start off, I'm going to say that obviously you're the Client Services Director, and that's a title that I think speaks for itself. But software developer, Aaron, what's a software developer?
Well, I mean, yeah, a software developer can kind of mean a lot of things, but, you know, at its core, it's just I develop software, kind of makes sense. So I would build programs for clients, which will do whatever the requirements ask for. So essentially just involves building software for people.
Okay, and Tiger Eye Consulting, what's your particular field?
So yeah, at Tiger Eye Consulting, we work primarily with lawyers, but we branch out a little bit more than that. But we primarily with lawyers, I think is good to say. And we work mostly with another software called iManage, which is a sort of a document management system. So it just keeps all of your documents organized, and you can search through them and stuff. And we sort of, in the development department at Tiger Eye, we build integrations and other tools to enable users to interact with iManage faster and more conveniently than they could without it.
Yeah, I think just to add on that, our primary focus is dealing with professional services firms, law firms, accountants, banks, other financial industries, media outlets as well, and we deal with document and email management. So those particular industries are heavy document orientated industries, and we provide them with better ways of managing the documents, managing their emails, and someone like Aaron, for example, he's in the last 12-18 months has built things like the ability to e-sign documents between the iManage application that he mentioned and things like DocuSign, for example. So he's built the integration that sits between the two of those, which we've been able to go out and sell to lots of different clients. So from his initial kind of requirements, he's built some software that does a function which within that then they'll be able to sell to our customers to save them time and money.
So, for instance, when you say, like, for instance, because some of your clients are lawyers, so for instance, if I'm understanding this correctly, if, say, for instance, with regard to conveyancing law, does that mean that that enables the legal documents? So, for instance, for buying and selling a house, that they can actually, instead of having to go via the postal system, and I know there's this sort of internal postal system for law, but does that mean that then the documents can then be emailed around and then be signed electronically?
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's kind of cutting down the the whole time an experience of that, and people can then even sign them on their phones and things as well, on iPads and things. So yeah. From
Wow.
a conveyancing point of view, it can speed up the whole process, which is very important when you're trying to buy and sell a house.
It's extremely important, and especially as with things taking so long. So that should actually cut down the whole process. So anybody who's looking to buy or sell a house at the moment, there's some good news for you. So that's great. So Aaron, can I ask you, was this your first job? What was your first job, and how did you actually end up at Tiger Eye?
Yeah, so I'll say it's maybe my first job in the sector, but I mean, I had the classic paper round for 6 years, and then I worked at a convenience store for another 4 years. I tried my hands in starting a startup. That didn't go super well, but we tried. And then I found myself working at Tiger Eye. So yeah,
Wow.
I'd say that this is like my first proper job in the sector.
Wow. Okay. And when you actually were at school, did you actually have a specific career in mind? Did you think I want to work in this kind of field? How did it sort of come about?
Not at all. Not at all. I knew that I was looking for something in the STEM field. Maybe I wanted to go somewhere in the science route, but I then just started falling in love with programming, and then that was it. It was sort of in my first year of A level, I decided programming and development was the future for me.
Okay, what did you take for A levels?
So I actually took maths and it's been a while. Sorry, I took maths, biology, and DT.
Hey.
Yeah, I should also mention that I also didn't do very well at A levels. So I only did my first year of A levels because it wasn't particularly for me. But then I found a new route. I went to college and did a BTEC in creative computing sciences at college. And then from that, I managed to get 3D stars and got into uni.
Wow. Well, that just shows that if you're on the right route, you're going to do a lot better. I mean, David, what would you say, when you were looking to recruit a developer, what would you say was the most important skills to actually have for the role? Because from my perspective, I would have thought that you have to study, physics and maths and engineering and all those
science, all sorts of
and
things.
go through yes. And obviously Aaron has just, delighted me to actually let us all know that in fact it doesn't have to happen that way.
Absolutely, and my mantra always has been when we're interviewing people, and something that I endorse with the Isaac Newton team when I spoke to them in December, is the fact that if you are doing the right the right subjects, that's great, of course, but really having the right aptitude and attitude. We're very lucky with Aaron because he came in with he's got a great logical troubleshooting kind of mindset, and I think that's crucial for a developer personally. But on top of that, we're very lucky because he's got a great personal ability about him. He's very good at communication. We can ask him to deal with clients, and that's very good because some developers are very more techie and more kind of, I guess, more about the computer side of things rather than they are the client side of things. So we felt that with Aaron, we were absolute gem because he had the logical mindset, and he obviously been to university and done the right subjects there. But along with that, he had that great personable ability and the softer skills, which we always look for in a team such as ours, because we are client driven. Therefore, people have to listen, communicate, empathize with customers, and that was an added bonus. Now, you can't always teach those skills because they're more natural within the person. You can teach technical stuff. So if Aaron had come in and we felt he lacked something on a particular technical area, with his mindset and his skill set, he could learn those. But on the softer skill side, I think that's a lot harder.
Okay. Well, before we go into the questions that you've got, David, could I just ask one last question?
Sure.
Aaron, you've already sort of said that you've had a change of direction. So if you were going to look back at your sort of 15, 16-year-old self, And I'm going to ask David the same question. You didn't know that. But what advice would you give your 15, 16-year-old self?
I would probably say I'd say it's quite general, but I'd say don't worry so much. Don't beat yourself up about things that haven't gone quite well for you, because there's still a lot of time for things to change. Is probably what I would suggest. I never had like the greatest path in school. I wouldn't say school was a great time for me. I don't think I learned as much as I could have because of a whole bunch of reasons to do with mental health and situation. But if I had known at that time where I would be now, then I feel like just my whole teen years would have been a lot different. But yeah, I'd say just don't worry about the things that are happening to you at the moment.
That's pretty cool, I have to say. Thank you for that, Aaron. And before I ask David that, I was just going to ask one question. I'll let David ask that one. But David, tell us about your 15-year-old self. And what advice would you give? You're not going to get away with that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I was back in the workhouse with Charles Dickens, obviously, but I mean, I was actually I was in a band most weekends playing gigs in Great Yarmouth, of all things. And so school studies were kind of important, but not my priority. I thought I was going to make it big in a band or as a DJ or something. So I think the biggest kick I got at 15, 16 was my careers advisor just telling me that I was never going to amount to much, and to get used to working somewhere like Tesco's or Sainsbury's or wherever the shops were at the time. And actually, I was determined to prove that person wrong. And that's actually the kick I needed to go out and actually challenge myself, that I was never going to, I knew that I, with respect, was capable of far more in my own being. So there's nothing derogatory about retail whatsoever, but I knew that I was capable of more. So it was up to me to shake myself up and do that. So that's what I did.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So you have a whole pile of questions that
we do. We have some great questions that came in from the Isaac Newton team. So I'm going to ask a couple of those to you, Aaron, and then we've also got some questions that are coming up on the screen, which is good. And if you've got any other questions, as you can see on the bottom of the screen, please do type them in, and we'll do our best to read them out. So the first question I've got for you, Aaron, is what should I do at uni if I wanted to be a developer? What sort of subjects do you think you might need?
So that is a good question, and there's obviously the obvious route, which is computer science. That's like, you could do that, and that will sort of cover everything you need to for most roles in computer science. However, it doesn't stop there. You could do mathematics, you could do biology, you could do physics, and all of those I say STEM courses that you go into will have things that you can apply to programming. That I'm pretty sure in all of the STEM classes you will do some form of programming, possibly. But then why stop there? Because you could also go down the arts route, and you could be a software designer, and it's a whole ballpark. So honestly, there's not really any. Okay, so maybe there's some fields you can go into that don't really apply to being a developer, but all of the STEM fields, definitely, especially engineering. Engineering is a good one to get into. All of those courses will put you on the right path to looking into being a developer or programmer.
Brilliant. I mean, you obviously started to mention there about sort of programming, and so we have another question which kind of lends itself into that very nicely. What would you say the best programming language is to learn for a future in computer science? Is a preferred one in your opinion that people should be focusing on?
So I'd say that there's no perfect language to learn for industry standard. I mean, I say that there is currently, I suppose, an industry standard which is merging it to C#. C# is emerging as the language that a lot of people are using, just because industry is Windows based and C# is also built for Windows, but also a bit more. But you don't have to just learn C#, because there's obviously a lot of companies that are just doing web stuff, which is your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But I'd say if you manage to just get 3 different good programming languages under your belt, and so that when I say 3, I'd group the web stuff into one, and then say Java and C#. Once you've got those 3 together, then it's kind of like when you're multilingual, you can, once you've picked up one language or a few languages, it's super easy to learn more once you just learn the difference in syntax between them. So I'd suggest just learn free, any free languages. My picks would be Python, C#, Java, and JavaScript, and sort of run with that.
That's very useful indeed. Okay, so
Before
let's
we,
kind of
sorry,
talk.
could I just,
Sorry, no.
sorry to interrupt, could I just interject there? So is that something you'd need to do before you go into training, or is that something you would, I mean, for somebody who's at school at the moment watching, would they need to actually pick that up before they can look into it?
Yeah, so for me, I've always been quite self-taught. I've always spent hours on YouTube playing around with projects, making my own little things before I even got into college. So for me, I personally would recommend at least having a look into it in your free time, because it's good to do so, and it can be quite fun just to create little projects that you build, and you surprise yourself that you can do it. So yeah, I would recommend just taking some time out your day and just trying to pick up a language, because it's sometimes not as hard as you think it would be.
And there's lots of opportunities out there. Microsoft Learn, which is a free resource, has lots of great tips for things like Python as a language. And I know that the students at Isaac Newton are doing coding in Python. And in fact, several guys in my support team at Tiger Eye are using Python coding in their own training to help them progress more as well. So there's lots of opportunities and free. I think there's free resources out there, aren't there, Aaron, to be able to do that. So.
For sure, Khan Academy is a good one as well.
Yeah, and Pluralsight I think is another good one. Okay, so let's talk about your kind of day at work. I've got a question about what's the average day at work like? Workload quota, breaks and social times, general surroundings. I mean, I guess your general surroundings are your home at the moment, but
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so let's talk about the average day anyway.
I'll answer this in two stages, I guess. So pre-COVID, you'd roll into the office, you'd have your little chat in the morning, just what you get up to, all of that, and then once everyone's made the coffees, you'd start with your day. You'd have your list of what you had to do, and you would presumably, I mean, it's hard to say because each day is quite different. Because we are a client-focused company, we sort of deal with issues, maintenance supports as they come in, but at the same time, I'm often sort of developing new tools and new software, and occasionally, again, maintaining software that I've written previously, and yeah, so it's very fluid throughout the day. So it would be a lot of building, maintaining, lunch, go get a chips from the city center, and then back to it. And yeah, that's kind of, so obviously there's good break patterns and stuff, especially at Tiger Eye. We had it was just nice and quite relaxed. So yeah, it was you pretty much spend the day doing bits and bobs here and there. And
I mean, you tend to work to deadlines, don't you? So you can, as long as you get those deadlines,
course, yeah.
and it's how you achieve them is up to you, really, isn't it? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Things are a bit different now, however. I mean, the whole doing bits and bobs is still valid, but we've now sort of opted for a more structured day plan, because we don't really talk to each other anymore. So every morning we have a stand up. We get our cams out and we just sort of have a look at each other, say how we're doing, and sort of plan what's going on in the day. Talk about what happened yesterday, so we all have an idea of what's actually happening. So it's actually maybe more organized than it used to be, because we've now got this structure, so we all kind of know what everyone's doing at the same time, which is great. But again, just sort of sit behind my computer all day. Yeah.
Delivering some great products, I think.
Of course.
And someone's asked a similar type question. So it's more a breakdown of how your day goes, really. So what proportion of your work life is spent on programming, research, writing, or meetings? I mean, I don't know if you can kind of percentages that at all.
I'd say I'm gonna have to very broadly average that. So what was it? It was what were the three? Programming?
Yeah, programming, research, writing, or meetings. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'd say programming is a solid, at least in my position, programming would be a solid 70 to 80%, maybe 10% research and 20% meetings.
Yeah.
Obviously, some days, for example, yesterday or the day before, I spent 10 hours on the phone. Like, so some days are just meetings, but most of the time it is. I'm doing a lot of programming for sure.
Great. Okay. Let's talk about go back to your interview for a second, if you can remember that. It was 2 years ago, wasn't it? This month, I think, Aaron,
yeah.
wasn't it? Yeah, 2 years ago. So hopefully you can remember back. How did you think your interview how did your interview for your job go, and what features of that interview do you think led to you being hired?
So I was very happy with my interview, partly because the two people who interviewed me were just lovely. In every single way. So they made me feel comfortable during my interview, and I felt like I was able to fully discuss, who I was and why they should hire me. And I think it was a very relaxed interview, which helped a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it went very well. I was able to sort of talk about my personal achievements throughout my life, and they resonated with that quite strongly, and I walked away from the interview feeling quite happy.
And had you had much experience of interviewing prior to that?
Oh yeah, lots. Before I had my 4-year stint at Co-op, I was just trying my very best to get a job, and it was very hard. It was very difficult to go out and get a job. That's especially as a first timer, so I had no formal experience, I suppose, and my grades weren't looking too good, and maybe I was just applying to the wrong places. I'm not sure, but I was putting my CV out there front and center, and I did get a lot of callbacks and I had a lot of interviews as well, and my interview skills definitely grew from that.
Yes,
but then I also had some events that I had to perform interviews for, that I sort of organized. So yeah, I gained interview skills from both sides of the table, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got another question from the Isaac Newton team. Are development positions as competitive as people say? Which kind of links onto you said, trying to get the right job.
Of course. So they can be. They certainly can be. If you're looking to apply for like the internships at Google, Facebook, the top tech companies, they certainly can be very very difficult to get hold of. However, there's a lot of companies that need developers, smaller companies, local companies that are looking for developers and will give you the time of day, such as Tiger Eye did. So yeah, it depends where you're looking. Again, can be, can't be sometimes.
And we've also just taken on, obviously, an apprentice developer as well. So that's
absolutely
that's an interesting area. So that gives people at the apprentice level an opportunity to come in and learn new skills. So I think that hopefully we'll see more of that into other firms as well. Okay,
David,
so what?
Sorry,
we're going to go there.
Regarding the apprenticeship, what level of apprentice have you got? Because I think there are probably lots of people listening to this who'd be quite interested to hear a bit more about that.
Well, we've got two. We've got one on the support side, which is a level 3 apprentice. Is a developer level 3 as well? I think, Aaron, isn't it?
Level 4.
Level 4. Okay,
Yeah.
So level 4 apprenticeship. We've gone through a particular company that helped us with that, and the idea is, Madeline, that they come on board and work for us 4 days a week, and then obviously they'll get a day off to study and learn new skills, which then can be transferable into the workplace as they spend their year with us.
Well, that's another useful way in, that you don't
very
have
much
to go
so.
to university.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got absolutely 2 cracking apprentices as well. Really lovely, personable people, and they're both showing some great aptitude already. And the hope is that if after the year we've got the positions to be able to offer them something permanently, then that would be our ideal situation.
Excellent. Well, that's very good to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome. So what's the kind of equipment that you get to work with, Aaron, and what support do you receive if you were to be troubled by a task?
So, I mean, I suppose hardware equipment, we don't really do any, hardware stuff. So I suppose the only equipment I really use is my keyboard and mouse on a day-to-day. But I suppose we could extrapolate that into different software and tools that we use. Again, we mostly do C#, which means we use Visual Studio, and that's the biggest tool at our disposal, and it's a fantastic tool. It's intuitive, but we also trying to think of other tools that we might use. But I think it's primarily Visual Studio.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, it's quite intuitive, and it's very powerful, so it does everything you need it to. So yeah, we kind of use that.
So if you get troubled by a task, I mean, you come across a problem or an issue as you're developing something, it's not quite proving to be the successful solution that you hoped it was going to be. When you get troubled by a task, how do you deal with that?
Well, I can tell you that happens almost every day, sometimes multiple times in a day. But it's a very common developer joke. But Stack Overflow is your friend, and I'm sure anyone listening that's in development oriented will know what Stack Overflow is. And if you don't, look at it, because it's a place where troubled programmers go to spout about their
help
issues.
Each other out. Brilliant.
Exactly, and it's a fantastic tool. It's probably where I learned maybe a good 20-30% of my development skills, just from Stack Overflow.
So it's like a therapy for developers, yeah?
Exactly, yeah. It's a good place. And then there's new things such as Gitter. So if you're struggling with a specific Git package, Git is a sort of, maybe I'm being too technical, but you can sort of talk to people. It's like an instant messaging platform just centered around a specific library or something like that. So Git is also very handy. So you can ask questions to even the package developers.
So you're not alone.
Themselves.
That's the main thing there. You have to draw an experience from other people, which is fantastic.
Exactly.
And also from an equipment point of view, I think you've got a newer laptop than I have, so you must be very important.
Well, of course.
Yeah,
the laptop.
I think we've got time for probably one or two more. Do you spend your free time working on personal or work projects, or a combination of both, or neither?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question, and the answer is depends on the day. I have spent a lot of time, my own personal time, developing. Sometimes some would say maybe too much time developing stuff, but I've spent a lot of time developing like games using Unity, and I even have like a few virtual servers that I do some things with, run game servers on, or my own website, etc. So yeah, it's definitely something that I enjoy. Just building things, even if they're not particularly useful. It's just it's a fun way to kind of pass the time and prove that you can do it.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we've probably got time for one more, which is what are the most important skills that you think you need for your job, Aaron?
So for my job, I'd say that willingness to learn is a big skill, or learning ability. I say would be the skill to have, because each day comes with its own problems, and it's good to be able to take in the solution to it and sort of learn about it for future use. So, I mean, as I say, we do a lot of different things at Tiger Eye, and they all come with their own challenges that I've picked up maybe 2 or 3 languages that I didn't really know before starting here, and I'm learning how to deal with different frameworks, and it's just important to be maybe not a quick learner, but I think it is important to be able to learn dynamically as and when.
That's brilliant. You're absolutely right. I think in your role, you have to constantly evolve and pick up new skills, and you're an absolute asset to us. So well done, Aaron. Thank you very much. Madeline, pass it back to you.
That's great. Yeah, a great point to finish off. So I would like to say thank you very much to David and Aaron. Thank you, Aaron, for joining us and answering so many questions about the role of life as a software developer. And thank you, David, for stepping in and asking the questions that the Sir Isaac Newton students were hoping to ask themselves. So I'd like to say thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All the best.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. See you soon. Okay, so that was David and Aaron, life as a software developer. Obviously, there's a great future there. And I think the takeaways from that show that success doesn't always come easy, and it doesn't always come straight away. And so it's certainly, if you're in the position now as a student and you're thinking, I really don't know what I want to do, and life is obviously quite challenging for most of us at the moment, it's a question of keep at it, keep going, and don't beat yourself up too much. So that's great. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us today. Next week, it's National Careers Week, and we have 2 exciting interviews on Tuesday and Thursday. On Tuesday, we've got Lord Hambledon, who is the Supreme Court Justice. He will be interviewed by my colleague Jordan. And then on Thursday, because it's a legal week as far as careers and coffees are concerned, we have various judges who work in different fields talking about their roles. So thank you very much for joining us. Do let us know, there's a survey down below, do let us know of anything you'd particularly like to see on careers and coffee. We'd very much appreciate that, and thank you very much for joining us today. Cheerio.